Yeah, hi, Alex from the Wroughton Office of Sales. Today we're going to be talking about lettings with Ellis and Nicky, and we are busting the myths and misconceptions on letting agents. So where should we start? So are all letting agents the same?
No, I wouldn't say all letting agents are the same. There is a lot of agents in Swindon. We are very established. We've been going for quite some time now. We do manage a large portfolio of properties, so we are very experienced. Our staff are really experienced, and we're local. So we're not a national agent. We do specialise in Swindon and the surrounding areas, so we are familiar with the market. Our contractors that go into properties, all of the staff, everyone is on a one-to-one basis, and we offer that personal touch.
Perfect.
Definitely. And we all live here ourselves.
Yeah.
Best
We do.
representatives.
We do, and I say we see a lot of boards as well as you're driving around, which is nice. So we can see that we've
Absolutely.
got large. I say the portfolio lettings boards compared to for sales as well, which is great. So it's obviously doing something right. So from a personal perspective, as a landlord, is it cheaper for me to self-manage, or why should I use an agent?
In the short run, it may be cheaper to self-manage on a month-by-month basis in terms of not having the outgoings of paying a letting agent. But in the long term, it's not always beneficial to self-manage. There is so much compliance placed upon us as letting agents and landlords. And if you don't serve correct documentation or something isn't complied with legislation, it can be very costly for landlords in terms of fines and ongoing issues. I mean, we've heard of landlords that have had problems, haven't we, where perhaps they've self-managed and perhaps they've not had any sort of rent protection and they've had to pursue tenants in court.
Yeah.
And obviously, if they come on a managed basis, we are able to offer that rent protection so that any legal costs and rental payments are covered. And obviously, being a well-regulated agent will ensure that all compliance is adhered to. And if it expires, we'll get it redone. So the onus is taken off of the landlord onto us. So actually, it's not always cheaper to go self-managed, is it?
No, and I always think I've done it, for 8 years now. If ever I was to let out my property, I'd 100% get it managed, just because I think I can see how much has to go into it, and it's not easy. And some people say, like, oh, I'm retired now, I've got the extra time.
Yeah.
But actually, there is so much that has to go into it. Do you want to be spending that time?
I was going to say, personal level, it is, we all live busy lives, and there's, experience, it is a lot to be looking after. There's that legislation was just something else. Have you done that? Oh, no, I haven't.
And it changes
Have we done that?
constantly.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah,
I see the
keep up
emails
with.
coming through, so which is
Yeah.
interesting. So it's interesting.
It's ever changing, and that's the thing. And like I said, it may appear cheaper, but if you do something wrong, or you don't adhere to something, and you do get fined, or you don't serve documentation, or you don't get the compliance carried out as you should, it can cause major problems.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't always pay to go self-managed.
No, perfect. On the other side, as a tenant, then, is it cheaper, or going through a letting agent, is it more expensive? Just word that the other way around. So, as a tenant, going through a letting agent, is it expensive, or should they just go direct?
So I think some tenants will avoid agents because they think there's going to be extra added costs. They'll go to like directly to a private landlord, say through Gumtree. But actually, there aren't any tenants agency fees. So there was a tenant fee ban back in 2019. So we will not charge the tenants anything. Obviously, they put down like a holding fee to secure a property, take it off the market. But then that will come off their move-in fees when they move in. So when they move in, it's the month's rent and their security deposit of 5 weeks.
Yeah.
But actually, that's all they'll be paying. So they won't pay anything actually directly to the agent.
A lot of tenants as well think if they go privately through a landlord that they won't have to go through certain reference checks, but even private landlords tend to reference tenants these days, and that's the case of employment checks or credit checks. So although some landlords might not reference, most tend to these days because there's portals that landlords can use individually. So most tenants would, coming through an agent, that's well established, it certainly pays as well to go.
It's got to be a risk from the tenant's perspective. It's just risk from the landlord's perspective as well in that regards. It's the fact you've got none of those, I say blame somebody else scenario, isn't it? In regards to the checks that you will go through, you tend to find the clients that I've met that were private landlords, the ones they've had the issues with, the ones that they've just literally friend of a friend, so they move in a month later, rent stops, and then there's another, now forever. How long is that going to take?
Quite often as
get
well,
them
it's
back,
family
so-
members.
Yeah.
Let to a family member, and then that's when there's issues because they obviously don't do it properly because they think, just a cousin.
Never rent to friends and family, as they say with sales. Never sell to friends and family, because if there's an issue, you bet your bottom dollar that will be the one that's got the problem. So perfect. On the other hand, is it easy to be a landlord?
No, I wouldn't say it was easy. I think, as we said earlier, there is a lot of ever-changing compliance and legislation placed upon landlords. So it's not necessarily easy. Again, this is why we really highly recommend going through a letting agent, because obviously you need to make sure that you remain compliant and your property remains compliant. And it is ever-changing. I mean, there's things going through now where in possibly a year to 18 months' time, there's huge changes happening. So it's a case of making sure that if you are doing it yourself, that you're keeping on top of everything. So I wouldn't say it was easy. Yeah. It's certainly beneficial, and there's a lot of perks to being a landlord, but it's not.
Nothing in this life is easy, but again, it's rewarding from that perspective, isn't it? So I think, from a political perspective, Labour potentially coming in next year, will that affect the rental market?
Well, there's already plans to make changes to the rental market as it stands anyway. Whether that changes with Labour or not, we don't know at this stage, but we'll let you know though, because we'll keep on top of it.
A question I get commonly asked in regards to the deposits: where does that go? Does that go straight to the landlord, or is it kept securely somewhere else?
No, so we put it securely with the tenancy deposit scheme, so it has to be with a scheme when a landlord takes a deposit. At the end of the tenancy, obviously there's a very thorough checkout that happens, and then that's compared to the original inventory, and then negotiations between the landlord and the tenant are done through the agent.
Sure. Perfect.
So we want to make it as fair as possible for the parties, really.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, because obviously it's a lot, these days I imagine it's a lot of money. So both of you want that security that it's kept
absolutely.
And that's
safe in that regards, because so many clients, and they expect the deposit back after one day, as you say, and it's not just a process of I've kept it in the drawer.
No,
it's
and
quite
and
nice.
the law changed to
to
confirm that actually deposits have to be registered with the government recognised scheme. So anyone that's renting, make sure that the deposit is registered.
And that works for both tenant and landlord, doesn't it? So from a safety perspective, which is great. So another myth that we've heard is the fact that once the tenants have moved in, you'll never hear from a letting agent again.
I mean, that's the dream, to be honest. That's the dream, because if you're not hearing from the letting agent in terms of any maintenance or issues, it means it's running smoothly. But whether or not the tenancy is going well, you would hear from us. So you'd get monthly statements from us with what's come into the bank, if anything's gone out. We also keep you up to date again with any compliance changes. We have regular contact with inspections. So when we've carried out an inspection at the property, you'll get a full report with photos letting you know how it's going with the tenancy. At the point that you renew the tenancy, or at the point of the anniversary of the rent, that we'll be in contact with you as landlord to discuss the rental price and look at whether the contract is renewed. So actually, contact is quite often. It's obviously the more you hear from us, the more likely that we're contacting you about maintenance issues. But as long as there's regular contact every month to let you know that everything's going well.
I think as a landlord, all you want is to be stress-free.
You do.
I say nothing in this world is going to be stress-free again, but it's certainly to make that whole process much more fluid or more open in that regards, as you say, because if you are doing it privately and the tenant stops paying, you've then got the issues. You've then got to sort it all out, as opposed to paying somebody in the nicest way to do all that for you, which is included as part of your rent, which is nice.
Absolutely.
So, perfect.
And I do find every landlord's different. So some like to be really involved, some like to be quite uninvolved. So we would just work to what works for them.
Yes.
So
we've got some that say, get the repair done, you've got to this amount, don't ring me. And if you ring them, they kind of pick up the phone, hello. But actually, it's some landlords will say, look, we've got this amount, just please get it repaired. Some would like to be more informed and would like multiple quotes, which is absolutely fine, and we'll do what we can to get differing quotes and get the best that we can for the landlord. So it just depends on the individual landlord. And I think at the point that Ellis goes out to value the property at the start, we can get an idea of what type of landlord you are and what you require from us as a service, and we'll tailor to suit you. So if you want more contact, absolutely fine. If you want less contact and just an email every now and then, again, absolutely fine. So,
and I think you allocated an individual person as well, would you be? Which is nice. So you have got that name to a face. It's not somebody different every time, which is great. So it's that personal contact as well, which is nice. On any aspect of business, it's nice that you've got who's looking after you.
Same for the tenant as well. So it's they know the tenant, the landlord, the property all very well, and everyone knows what's going on at all times.
Perfect.
Which works nicely, doesn't it?
And that, the more we do have contact with a tenant or landlord, obviously more of a relationship we build, and it's quite often we get brought in treats and things at the end of the tenancies by landlords and tenants.
We like
which
those.
Is lovely. So it's nice to build that rapport with them. We don't want them changing and having to deal with someone different every time. It is one property manager, which is for that landlord through the duration, and as well as a tenant, like Ellis said. So any problems, you've got one person to deal with.
Perfect. Is there any other myths that you're aware of that we're not, that you might suddenly come across, especially as a valuer in that regards, that the landlord would ask you a particular question that you think?
I think a big one when it's their home and they've lived there,
Yeah.
family home, they say, I'm just not going to get it back in the same condition, am I? I'm just not going to be the same. And that's like a worry for them. But obviously that's why we go in, we inspect, we do a really thorough inventory before the tenant moves in. So we know exactly what it looked like. But I would say that is a myth. I think majority of tenants really do look after the property.
Yeah.
Do. Yeah.
It's like their own home, and that's what we want them to feel like as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we do advise landlords, you know, you have to allow for wear and tear. So,
Of
you know, if
course.
a tenant's been there 5 years, probably expect that at
some
some point you'll
works.
need to redeck.
You're not going to get
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
a new home, are you?
that's
So from
it.
that perspective, which is,
But
again, a
it's-
misconception
Yes.
from that perspective, is the fact you're going to expect the house to come back exactly as you
Yeah.
left
Yeah.
it, which clearly after 5-10 years or whatever length of time has passed, won't be the case.
No.
More than likely.
But
So I think
they, you know,
managing expectation is probably the way
That is-
forward
yeah.
in that regards. Because I think, again, that's a misconception from my
Yeah.
perspective when I lettings a few years ago, is that, it's knowing all the facts. So you're not, hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
expecting
happening?
it.
What?
And the thing is with tenants as
Yeah.
well, and you know, a lot of our tenants are first-time renters, so
Yes.
we're there on hand
Yeah.
to guide them as well. You know, things that might seem obvious for someone who's owned a home for 10 years isn't obvious to someone that's just moved into a rental property. So
Yeah.
if they're unsure about how they should deal with a certain situation with regards to reporting maintenance or things that do or don't need to be acted upon, we're there to guide them through it. So
Yeah.
quite often we've got the team on the phone talking them through certain processes and procedures on how to get things sorted. If it's something above and beyond what we would expect a tenant to have to deal with, then obviously we'd seek contractor quotes and things, but we will manage everyone's expectations
Yeah, yeah.
and guide them
Absolutely.
through it.
Perfect. So where do you see rents going over the next sort of 6 months to a year? Obviously, from my perspective, they seem to be rising, which is great from a investment perspective.
Yeah,
But as you say, it's
Yeah,
just
market's really, really strong.
Yeah.
Still, we've had, I think since COVID, it's been kind of rise,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
great. There's lots of tenants looking. We're finding a lot more people that are coming to the area
Yeah.
and commuting back out.
yeah.
I think we're just that little bit cheaper than kind of Reading, Bristol. But yeah, so it's a good market.
Yeah, from a sales perspective, we're seeing a lot of clients coming up from Reading, Newbury,
Yeah.
London direction, because again, value for money is still
Yeah.
perceived to be great investment, in Swindon as well, which is fantastic.
And
So
we've got a lot here.
We
Yeah.
have, yeah. And I think people working from home as well. It's not,
Yeah.
the commute isn't there so much
No.
with people having to work or can work remotely. So we do find that we do get a lot of people coming to Swindon for that. And actually, we've got a lot more, we're ever changing, aren't we, in Swindon? New things coming
Definitely.
in. So
Yes.
it's a great place to live. And the rents are fantastic. And there's always lots of properties. Obviously, we're always striving to take on more properties to keep up the
Of
demand.
course. Yeah, yeah.
But it is a great place to live. And there's something for everyone in Swindon in terms of what you're looking for with rental.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so thanks, Alice and Nicky. That's some great information there, and hopefully the questions we've answered. Obviously, if anybody has any questions, they can always write a message to us, and we're happy to come back to you at
We
some
certainly
stage.
will.
So thanks for today.
No,
and
thank
we'll
you.
see you again.